What is up, Packers fans? Happy Friday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Of course, you can find the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. Today's show is presented by Luiges Pizza. We're going to be breaking down Matthew Golden, everything that happened on day one. Looking ahead to day two, we've got a lot to discuss today. Before I do so, make sure you're going out and getting your Luiges Pizza for draft weekend. As is tradition, right here with the Pack a Day podcast, we got to have our post-draft pizza. That is going to be coming up probably a couple days. Probably going to be after Friday, probably going to be after Saturday. There's going to be a couple Luiges pizzas coming up this week. I'm going to do one thin crust for sure. The ultra thin crust is the best frozen pizza thin crust you're going to get, and the fresh dough pizza as well. I love the pepperoni for each, but the Supremes are amazing. The breakfast pizza is amazing. Make sure to check them all out at your local grocers. It is well worth it. The best frozen pizza on the planet, in my opinion. Not just saying that, legitimately delicious. Go check those out. And a huge thank you to Luiges Pizza for sponsoring us throughout this draft weekend. Shout out to our new Pack a Day Podcast YouTube members: Red Dwarf Slayer, DS Badger 10, ZC Wisconsin Andy, Decon 419, Ryan, Michael Abbey, Steve Burgess, and Big Papa Penguin. Thank you guys so much. Where I want to start today is by congratulating Mark Murphy. And obviously, it's just day one of a 3-day weekend, and I'm sure we're going to congratulate him again and have another opportunity when the weekend is done in its entirety and the draft is done in its entirety. You never quite knew 1,000,000% for sure. You had a lot of faith that the NFL, the city of Green Bay, the Packers organization were going to be able to pull this off in a real significant way. But you never quite knew for sure. There was a vision for it, and you would hope that they would see it through to fruition, that it would be this incredible event that you thought it could be. And my goodness, was it everything already that you could have possibly wanted it to be, and so much more. The visuals, the cathedral, as NFL Network and Rich Eisen called it on the broadcast a couple different times, of Lambeau Field in the background. I have goosebumps, man, just talking about it. Seeing all of those people, 205,000 people. Now, it feels a little bit like a WWE event where they, just are like, it is sold out and it's how many ever people. And they, the number gets a little bit fuzzy from time to time. But regardless, an unbelievable number of people flooded to Green Bay, Wisconsin. I can't, as somebody who is, by all intents and purposes, born and raised in Green Bay. I was born in Manitowoc, technically, about 30 minutes south of Green Bay. I was moved to Green Bay within the first month of my life. So by all considerations, born and raised basically in Green Bay. To see this all happen in this town, it still is stupid and unbelievable to me that, for me personally, somebody who could not love football and the NFL and the Green Bay Packers anymore, that again, part of it is, of course, because I was born in the backyard of Lambeau Field, but the happenstance that I could have had that happen, and then, to go on and have this unbelievable opportunity to talk Packers, and to be somebody that at age 8, 9, 10 was in my parents' basement writing down every single draft pick, calling draft hotlines that were in the newspaper, hoping that Green Bay would take Garrison Hurst or Marshall Faulk or one of my favorite running backs. And then to have it become this, where the draft is in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Mark Murphy had a vision for all of this. And the fact that, it's one thing to have that vision. The fact that he was able to get the NFL to have it in Green Bay, the fact that it was as unbelievably successful in day one as you could possibly imagine. I don't know what more you could possibly want. The scenes were amazing. Everything went off, again, without a hitch. I have not heard of any issues, malfunctions, anything. This was an unbelievable event. I could not be more proud of the Packers and the city of Green Bay. I could not be more happy for Mark Murphy for what he was able to accomplish, even just on day one. We've got 2 full days left, which is the cool part of this. Really well done, Green Bay Packers. Congratulations, Mark Murphy, on a vision and a dream come true. It was so cool to watch. Again, you have this vision for it of what it's going to be in your head, and then you're just waiting to see, does it look like that? And it did, and so much more. So congratulations, unbelievably well done. And how awesome for him to get to announce the Packers' first pick. I mean, just a unbelievably cool moment for him. And really the sealer on an unbelievable career in Green Bay. And there's always could there have been a little bit more? To me, Super Bowl championship, some really strong hires in Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur, and amongst others within the organization during his time in Green Bay. But you brought a Super Bowl to Green Bay. You brought an NFL draft to Green Bay. That's pretty impressive, in my opinion. And again, the objective is, I know, to win a Super Bowl every year, and we can, hold people's, feet against the flames to that standard, however much as we want. But to have this event is a huge crowning moment in Mark Murphy's career in Green Bay, and certainly one that I feel is very, very well deserved. So very cool moment. And just, I'm still buzzing about how everything went down on day one. But I know we want to talk about, obviously, the players. Green Bay selects Matthew Golden, and that's just kind of like the super cool moment of all of this as well, right? Mark Murphy wants to host the draft. It's hosted in Green Bay. And then you get Mark Murphy to get to call the pick, and he gets to be the one that says, first time since 2002, the Packers draft a wide receiver. And then there's that sort of audible like excitement where everyone knows what that means, that it's going to be Matthew Golden. But then there's the, sort of pregnated pause, and it's just like Matthew Golden, and just unbelievable scenes in Green Bay, right? The crowd goes wild, a unbelievable pop for the Matthew Golden selection, and just how that all went down. It almost is like, in like, whether it's wrestling or something, where they don't give you something for so long that like you don't ever think you're going to get it. And then when you actually do get it, it's so much better because you don't expect it and see it coming. It's almost like the Packers specifically deprived everyone of a first round wide receiver just for this moment. Like, we're never going to take a first round. I know that this wasn't the case, and I know that they were trying to get wide receivers like Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, etc. But it's almost like we're going to hold back. We're never going to take a wide receiver in the first round until it gets to Green Bay, and then we're going to shock everyone and take one. And it's just going to be, and it's for that moment. Again, I know it's not that way. It's not planned that way, but it almost feels that way, right? And then you get, after all that, no first round wide receivers, you get that moment in Green Bay, and just to see the elation and again, what that means for Matthew Golden and who he becomes. We all love the Josh Jackson pick when he was taken in the second round out of Iowa, right? And sometimes that doesn't always turn out. There's a long way to go. Sometimes we hate the pick and he turns out amazing. Sometimes we hate the pick and he turns out terrible. Sometimes we love the pick and he turns out amazing. Sometimes we love the pick and he turns out terrible. Those are all possible things here. I think a lot of people like the pick. I think a lot of people are very excited. For me, just personally, a lot of guys that I really liked went a little bit before. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. But guys like Shamar Stewart, obviously Mykal Williams went way before to San Francisco at pick 11. Derek Herman just goes a couple picks before. Jahdae Barron goes just a few picks before. So a lot of those guys that I was really interested in for Green Bay end up going, really kind of the last handful of picks, really from like 17 to 22. A lot of guys come off the board that there was, I think, some real legitimate interest in from Packers fans, myself included. Once you got on the board at 23, certainly trading down was a potential possibility there. And just seeing if you could recoup some picks and still get somebody at, I'm not saying necessarily into like mid-second round or anything like that, but maybe end of the first and still get some picks in exchange and still get a player that you really like. But with Matthew Golden on the board, this made all the sense in the world to stay and pick. When the pick was in, right, when it was official that the pick was in, we were waiting for a pick. I'm sitting here and I didn't want to, say it out loud on the, the live chat, but I'm thinking in my head, Matthew Golden, Matthew Golden, Matthew Golden. Please be Matthew Golden. Please be Matthew Golden. I thought he was the best option on the board. The only other one for me would have been Donovan Ezeraku. You guys know I've loved Donovan Ezeraku since the first time I watched him. Think that he's still going to be a tremendous player. I would love if somehow they could move up to get him, or if even somehow he unbelievably fell to them in round 2. I don't think that's going to happen. And again, I'm not sure he's exactly their type of defensive end that they want anyway. But he, outside of Donovan Ezeraku, Matthew Golden was the player that I wanted them to take at that spot. And it was, again, such an unbelievable moment to get the first wide receiver since 2002, my graduating year in high school, by the way. You get this really, really fun wide receiver. So again, the way the scenario played out was amazing. As far as Golden himself, this is something that I've talked about, in a couple different episodes. Just as a heads up, if you listen to the gut reactions episode. Obviously, some of this stuff is going to be a little bit repeated right now. Also, as you guys, most of you know, we'll do our super deep dives as time goes on. So we're going to give you a bit of a scouting report here, but this is going to be something that as we get into like the next couple weeks, every single Packers draft pick, whether it's 6 of them or 14 of them, we're going to deep dive all of them in great, unbelievable, undeniable detail. And you'll probably hear some of this stuff again when we get there as well, but we will take those very deep dives into all of these draft picks. So today's a little bit more of, again, just your general breakdown. And again, we'll get into it in far greater detail over the course of the next couple of weeks with all these players. But, I've said with Matthew Golden, even, weeks before, even when it didn't seem like he was going to be a potential member of the Packers, that if they were somehow finding a way to get Golden, I thought he could make a Greg Jennings style impact on this offense. The same, offense that had Aaron Rodgers up and coming, that Greg Jennings came into, and I thought brought an entirely different dimension to that offense than what they had previously. I feel like Matthew Golden is very much in that same vein. Again, not the same exact type of player, different sort of physicality for Jennings, a little bit better speed for Matthew Golden, at least on paper, or at least in the 40-yard dash. But I think that's the kind of impact that he can bring to the team. And I think his ability to play multiple spots at wide receiver, I think his speed is going to play. And I just think he gives them a different flavor of wide receiver. And I've seen some people say, you know what, he's just Jaden Reed. This is just another Jaden Reed. It is not the case at all. These are two very different players. And, the run blocking is probably going to be something we're going to have to talk about at some point. It needs to improve a little bit. He's a willing blocker, which is always something that I want to see. So I'm not worried about the effort or the focus or the want to. It's just technique stuff. And that stuff is the stuff that you can coach, right? So you're less worried about it at that point in time. And it's something that you feel like he can potentially get better at with time as well. But Matthew Golden plays primarily as an outside wide receiver. That in and of itself is a massive difference between Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed for Green Bay as of late has been basically just a slot wide receiver that plays a little bit outside here and there. Golden's basically the inverse of that. He is primarily a outside wide receiver that'll play a handful inside from now and again. And, just that in and of itself is different. Also, Golden can win down the field on, some vertical routes, and his ability to press down the field is something that, Goody himself said this is the quote, his ability to stretch the field outside the numbers is really, really important. Of course it is. Of course it's massively important. That's what they needed, is somebody that could stretch the field a little bit more. And clearly Goody believes that this is something that you get in Matthew Golden. You can understand why with the speed that he has. You have to be aware of those guys. If you, just take a misstep somewhere, they're just blowing past you. They're too fast. So you got to really be on your heels. The safeties have to be a little bit more aware, because teams are acutely aware and not wanting to give up any sort of big plays in the passing game or in the running game, obviously, but you get my point. So that's going to be something that he brings different to the table. It is a different element. There are some real legitimate differences between him and Jaden Reed, clearly between him and Wicks, clearly between him and Romeo Doubs. This is a different level of wide receiver. And it just, and level is the wrong word. It's just a different type of wide receiver. Level is definitely wrong, because I think the world of Jaden Reed. So I'm not saying Golden's going to come in and necessarily be better than Jaden Reed, but these are two different types of wide receivers. This is not a, one for one. And by the way, just to be crystal clear on this, if they found another Jaden Reed that could play on the outside, though, sign me the hell up. I love Jaden Reed. I know he went through a little bit of a slump in the second half of this past season. I have all the faith in the world in Jaden Reed. He's going to be still a phenomenal wide receiver in this league. So if you find one of those that you can play on the outside, I'm very cool with that. I'll take double Jaden Reeds. If one of them can play outside, one of them can play in the slot. Run blocking, again, we're going to have to figure out a little bit, but he's different. I think that's the ultimate answer here. As far as sort of the scouting report, again, this is a little bit of a repeat from our gut reactions video, but for those of you who maybe didn't listen to that, 5'11", 191, did not have a relative athletic score due to testing, ran a 4.2940. He was the consensus 20th player on the consensus draft board. Dane Brugler had him at 15. Daniel Jeremiah had him at 14. Most people had him in that teens range. A lot of people had him as, the number 2 wide receiver. Some even had him as the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. And certainly understandably so, with, again, some of the skills that he can bring to the table. Had a 74.3 PFF grade on 854 snaps this past year in 2024. Remember, he was Texas this year. He played Houston the prior 2 years before that. In 2023, he had a 68.4 grade on 403 snaps. And then in 2022, had a 65.7 grade on 538 snaps. Again, he can play outside, inside. He can play all three positions, X, Y, and Z at wide receiver. Line him up where you need to, and he's going to go out and find ways to win, which is, again, I think something that is going to be very valuable for Green Bay. Again, these were my notes prior to Green Bay drafting him. I'll get to some later that are different, that are after the fact, but these initial ones here are all from my notes prior to drafting. So no rose tinted glasses, no any sort of fudging your report. There's nothing like that. These are everything that I wrote weeks ago before we knew where he was going to go. Natural hands catcher, can play outsider in the slot, very fluid. He's a complete wide receiver, great speed after the catch. Doesn't really show a 4.29 40 on tape, but he's fast. Has natural receiving ability, good change of speed within the route, very capable route runner. There's room for growth for sure. And that was my next thing here. He will get more nuanced with his route running and his releases in the program as he becomes more and more of, I think, a pro wide receiver. Those things are going to come a little bit more, I don't want to say naturally, but those are things that he's going to learn in the NFL. I think he's a good route runner. I think he can become a lot better at it. And I think he's good with releases, but I think he can, still become a lot better at that as well. He's a willing blocker on the outside. He's fast, but he's not super dynamic in any phase of the game. He's capable of coming up with contested catches, and he does play bigger than his height, something that is very important to Green Bay. When you're taking somebody that's in that 5'10" and a half range, you better be able to be physical. You better be able to play big at the point of attack, and you better be able to go get the ball. And he definitely does play bigger than what his height would indicate. Has some return ability. These are now some notes post-draft of once Green Bay did get him. Does have some return ability. Did some kick returning at Houston. Had 2 kick returns for touchdowns in 2023. Goody said that he has the best hands in the draft. Said he's authentic. He's genuine. Loves football. And as mentioned earlier, said that he has the ability to stretch the field outside the numbers. And that part of it was really, really important. Now, Ross Uglum and Peter Bukowski were going back and forth a little bit on Twitter, and they brought up a couple great points. Ross brought up the fact that, hey, this is a player that has succeeded primarily versus zone coverage and has primarily been somebody that gets some kind of schemed up free releases. A couple things here. They do still need to show that they can beat man coverage. That was an issue last year. And as Peter Bukowski pointed out, he has a 0.92 yards per route run versus man coverage, which for those of the uninitiated in yards per route run is very low. That's not what you want to see. There are some indicators that against man coverage, he hasn't been quite as good. Now, it's a smaller sample size. He primarily went against zone. So it's not a sort of be-all, end-all thing where you can make every judgment on it. But you would like to see that number be a lot higher. His work against man coverage is probably going to have to get better. The good news about this is, if you say, well, he's getting schemed up and he's getting some free releases, guess what? Matt LaFleur knows how to do some of that stuff and scheme guys up and get them on free releases. Then if after that you can use your 4.29 40 to your advantage, all the power to you, because that's what's going to get you open and that's what's going to set you up for success. So I'm not super concerned about that, but he's definitely going to have to show that he can be a little bit more successful against man, where he's already shown a lot of success against zone. He also had some really clutch moments this past year. He was his best at the end of the year as they were trying to make a run towards the national championship. And in some key moments, there's a huge 4th down against Arizona State that he comes up with a touchdown. Some red zone plays and have to have it moments. He came up huge in those situations. So he's got a little bit of a clutch gene as well. As I mentioned, again, this was before he was drafted. I said, quote, he should come in and make an impact right away, has the ability to develop into a nice number 1 wide receiver, but at minimum should be a really good number 2 and sooner rather than later. Here were the notes from Daniel Jeremiah in his overall scouting report of Matthew Golden. Quote, Golden has average size, but he plays with tremendous polish, instincts, and toughness. He spends a lot of time operating out of the slot. That's actually interesting because, again, it was only 20% that he actually operated out of the slot. It was actually 70 on the outside. So that's an interesting one from DJ. He can defeat press coverage with quickness or strength. He understands how to tempo routes and sets up defenders down the field. Let's see. He can change gears when the ball goes up and he tracks it naturally. He does a nice job of staying grounded through the catch when working on crossers. He has the utmost confidence in his ball skills. After the catch, he is very strong, sturdy to pull through tackles, and he can make defenders miss in space. I love his temperament on the field. He plays with an edge, Overall, Golden doesn't have dynamic traits, but he's a natural football player and a quarterback's best friend. He's dependable. Lance Zierlein says, Golden works all three levels of the field with similar consistency and productivity. His route running needs refinement, but he does a decent job of altering tempo and separating at break points. Golden has the ability to play all three receiver spots. He also has the agility and body control to turn near misses into highlight catches. Focus drops still pepper his play, but he's a willing participant in traffic and took command of contested catches with better physicality and catch strength in 2024. Golden's starting level traits and big leap forward as a go-to playmaker have him primed to become a productive catch maker with the potential to develop into a number one wide receiver in the future. As far as his fit with Green Bay, it's a pretty easy story, right? They needed that outside wide receiver that has the ability to win deep. That's not going to be the only thing he does. This is not like somebody like Deontay Thornton in this draft where it's just goes in comeback routes. That's not what this is going to be. He's a well-rounded wide receiver that can run multiple routes and can play multiple spots. He's going to come in and provide competition, and he is also going to be somebody that has the ability to come in and actually make an impact. And that there's going to probably be some schemed up stuff from Matt, but Golden has the ability to really, truly win on his own as well. It's going to have to get better, and man, especially kind of press coverage can give him some trouble at times. But I do think that you are going to see him come in and find a way to make an impact as soon as this season, right? In 2025. I have really no doubt about that. Now, I don't want to put any more pressure than that on him. Let's see how he comes in and competes. But I do think that, you're going to have Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, and Jaden Reed. Those are going to be your guys. Doubs is going to be your possession guy. Golden's going to be your speed guy on the outside. Wicks is going to play some inside outside, kind of more of your route runner type. And then you've got Jaden Reed as your slot guy and a guy who can do some gadget stuff as well. So you've got a pretty well-rounded group. I would expect, until Christian Watson gets back, that McCole Hardman and Bo Melton will fight for a spot. And then my guess is that Malik Heath will fight for a spot with anyone else if they were to take another receiver in this draft and or any sort of undrafted free agent guys. And then when Watson comes back, you could look at Malik Heath potentially being the, kind of the guy out, or it could be whoever wins between Melton and McCole Hardman. It also could be that Melton and Hardman make it and Heath does not. But here's the thing, competition. And here's the other thing that I will add on top of this is I think this is going to be an unbelievable challenge to every other wide receiver in the room. Maybe a bit of a wake-up call. There was too much complacency and there was too much of taking a step back from the wide receivers in 2024. This is where Goody talked about urgency. And he's talked about how competition is the best way to get maybe some complacency back into urgency. These wide receivers, all of them, Matthew Golden included, are going to have to earn their spots. Their snaps that they get on game days, how many times they get thrown the ball, what opportunities are presented to them, they're going to have to earn all of those. This is not a, wide receiver by default that, these guys are going to have to be out there. There's going to be a lot more competition this year. And again, I think bringing in McCole Hardman and I think obviously now, drafting Matthew Golden is going to pay dividends. And I think that's message sent to that wide receiver room of, hey, it's go time. Who are going to be the three that step up and really kind of carry this offense from a receiver standpoint? There's way too much talent there. And I think that's one of the best things about this pick is it is going to create a lot of really awesome challenges for the rest of that wide receiver group. I think they're going to rise to it. I think you're going to see that entire wide receiver room rise because there is better competition than there even was this past season. So yeah, that's the fit with Green Bay. That's the challenge to the other wide receivers on the team. That obviously when you take Matthew Golden leaves some positions that did not get addressed in the first round, primarily defensive end, defensive tackle, and corner. Those are going to be three positions that are going to be very important for Green Bay as we get into, obviously the course of, the remainder of this draft, but specifically on day 2 on Friday. The guys that are on my big board at those positions, defensive end included Landon Jackson, Donovan Ezeraku, JTT from Ohio State, Tuamalu, Braden Swinson, Nick Scorton, and Jordan Birch. Defensive tackles included Darius Alexander, Alfred Collins, and TJ Sanders. And corners included Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, Siobhan Ravel, and Azariah Thomas. All players that I could see Green Bay having some level of interest in. And hopefully, whether it's at corner, defensive tackle, or defensive end, you can get a really talented player there in round 2. Maybe you go up and get one, maybe not, but I'm going to be interested to see where Green Bay can go in round 2 and 3 on Friday. As far as the draft itself, we'll kind of go through these in little bunches, but first 10 picks, Titans took Cam Ward, Jaguars took Travis Hunter after a huge trade up. Giants took Abdul Carter. Patriots took Will Campbell. Browns took Mason Graham after their trade down. Raiders took Ashton Genty. Jets took Armand Membu. Panthers took Tet McMillan. Saints took Kelvin Banks Jr. And the Bears took Colston Loveland. A couple notes here. I like the pick of Cam Ward a lot at number 1. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Travis Hunter. Listen, I really like Travis Hunter. And there's a strong argument to be made that he's the best prospect in this draft. I think it's between Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and maybe an honorable mention to Ashton Genty. But those are the guys in this draft. But to give up that much capital, what Jacksonville did to go up and get him, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. Now, if Hunter is who they think he can be, they're not going to have any regrets over what they gave up. Sincerely, he can be that good. But this is a lot of pressure to make sure that pick pays off. And if Travis Hunter can do it, they won't have any regrets, but that's a big ask of him to live up to everything that they gave up in that situation. And I'm just very happy that Ashton Genty did not go to Chicago. I didn't want to have to cheer against him. He goes to the Raiders and at pick 6, really, really good pick for them. All right, the next ones, 49ers took Michael Williams out of Georgia. Cowboys took Tyler Booker. Dolphins took Kenneth Grant. Colts took Tyler Warren. Falcons took Jalen Walker, somebody who had a little bit of a fall. Cardinals took Walter Nolan. Bengals took Shamar Stewart. Seahawks took Ray Zabel. Bucks took Emeka Egbuka. And Broncos took Jahdae Barron. So at 8, the Panthers took Tet McMillan. If there was any hope there, that was gone very quickly at pick 8. Michael Williams went 11. Kenneth Grant went 13. Jalen Walker went 15. Shamar Stewart went 17. Walter Nolan went 16. And then Emeka Egbuka went 19. And Jahdae Barron went 20. A lot of guys that a lot of people were hoping that were going to maybe stay available until pick 23, especially in that Shamar Stewart, Emeka Egbuka, Jahdae Barron little run there. And those 3 of the last 4 certainly limited things a little bit as Green Bay kind of got up on the clock. So it was a little bit of a bummer to see a lot of those players go off the board. Whether or not Green Bay could have got up in the draft a little bit, we don't know. But it just didn't work out that way. And I don't think anyone's too upset at the moment. Pick 21, Steelers then took Derek Herman. Again, maybe somebody that would have been interesting to Green Bay if he lasted a couple more spots. Chargers took Omarion Hampton. Packers then, of course, took Matthew Golden. Vikings took Donovan Jackson, which was an interesting pick. The Giants trade up for Jackson Dart. They get their quarterback. Falcons trade up for James Pierce. They get another defensive end. Ravens took Malachi Starks. Lions took Tyleik Williams. An aggressive move there, but I like that move for Detroit. Commanders took Josh Connerly Jr. Bills took Maxwell Hairston. The Eagles took Jahad Campbell. And the Chiefs took Josh Simmons. Let's take a look at the NFC North first as we kind of wrap up day 1. Bears got Colston Loveland. Vikings got Donovan Jackson. Lions got Tyleik Williams. And of course, the Packers got Golden. And Golden makes all the sense in the world for Green Bay for a variety of different reasons. It was a pretty well celebrated pick by pretty much everyone, especially those in the media as well. So I think he's going to be a really fun piece for Green Bay. Tyleik Williams is a very Detroit Lions type player. He's going to be a pain in the middle of that defense. He has a lot of opportunity for growth. He's only going to get better as time goes on. But Tyleik Williams, really nice pick for Detroit. It might seem a little bit aggressive at that point, but to me, he's not that far off from Kenneth Grant, who went a little bit earlier. I think he's going to be a potential big time player for them on that interior. Donovan Jackson, I thought was a little bit aggressive, but we see that they are a team that wants to kind of remake that offensive line. If JJ McCarthy is going to be there, he's going to be the guy. You better have a good offensive line ready to go. I think that pick, Donovan Jackson, will certainly help with that vision. And then Colston Loveland is an interesting scenario of like, what's your return on investment? Are you going to be able to get it from a tight end? I think you have a little bit of a Sam Laporta here. And we know how important Sam Laporta was to that Detroit offense. Now, they're trying to basically create Detroit 2.0. Well, now they have their Sam Laporta in that tight end. And, with Colston Loveland, I think he's going to be somebody that separates really well. He's going to be a pain to play against. But tight ends are not often players that hit a ton that early in the draft. We'll see if Loveland is the difference maker here. But if he turns out the way that I think he can, then he's definitely going to be a pain to play against for the next, foreseeable future. My favorite picks in round 1, the Broncos getting Jahdae Barron, having him fall all the way to 20 and then getting him there. He was a top 6 guy on my board. I loved him that much. So Jahdae Barron at 20 was a huge value for me. I talked about this a little bit before. I talked about it on the live show as well. I don't think Cam Ward's getting enough credit. I don't think he's getting talked about enough. I think he's a real legitimate top tier quarterback prospect. I think the Titans were really smart to stick and take him rather than trying to trade out or get a bunch of stuff when you got a quarterback opportunity to take somebody like Cam Ward, those don't come across all the time. And I think you're probably pretty smart to take it if you don't have a quarterback. So I really thought the Titans did a great job there. The Browns trading down, I thought trading down, they missed out on a top tier player, but I think the value of what they got in return was massively impressive. And I do think Mason Graham's a really good, player and a nice fit for them. I could still make the argument for Abdul Carter, just taking him at 2, but I think what they were able to get was still pretty smart overall for Cleveland. And then the Rams trading down with the Falcons to pick up a future first round pick. I thought there was a level of genius in that as well. They get a second round pick. There's some other little swaps involved, but they get a first round pick in 2026, which I think is going to be huge. So it's a really nice job of the Rams pulling that off. My least favorite picks are all the ones that were traded up for. Jacksonville giving so much. I love Travis Hunter. I think he's really talented. And if he turns out, nobody's going to complain about this down the road, but I think that's a lot to give up for Travis Hunter, basically a non-quarterback. I get he can play 2 different positions. Maybe that can pay it off, but I thought that was over-aggressive from Jacksonville. The Giants trading up to get Jackson Dart. The actual compensation wasn't terrible. A third and a future third to get up a handful of picks to get to the second round. That's workable. It's not a huge deal. I think Jackson Dart's not necessarily the right guy to have as a developmental quarterback. Russell Wilson's apparently the guy, and then they're gonna kind of change some things out, or we'll see. Jameis Winston potentially being the number 2, or if he can battle with Jackson Dart. We'll see who ultimately gets that. But it was announced that basically Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. So we'll see if that continues to be the case, or if Jackson Dart can beat him out, or how long that takes. But I really dislike that move. I think Dart was like a late day 2, early day 3 kind of guy. Maybe I just get it wrong, and maybe they're right, but I couldn't quite get there with Jackson Dart. And then the Falcons trading up for James Pierce, another one that I did not really like at all. James Pierce again. I think if he's going to a place, Atlanta, on that fast track, it probably plays pretty well there. And then you got Jalen Walker on the other side. So I thought getting 2 edge rushers is smart, but giving up a future first, if you're Atlanta, that could be a top 5 pick next year. Just not wise stuff from the Falcons. I'm pretty stunned that they did that for James Pierce of all people. Probably my least favorite move of the entire day by anyone was the Falcons doing that and going up to get James Pierce. All right, day 2 big board. 3 players that were left on my round 1 big board for Green Bay: Landon Jackson, Trey Amos, and Will Johnson. If you're looking at some players in day 2, quarterback Tyler Shuck, running back Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, and Cam Skedaboo. Wide receiver, there's multiple there, but I think it's irrelevant now on the fact that they took a wide receiver, so we don't need to go through those. By the way, I don't expect them to take a quarterback or running back. These would be kinds that were at least somewhat intriguing if they decided to change their mind. Tight end Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, and Terrence Ferguson. Offensive tackle Ariante Ursary, Logan Brown, and Anthony Belton. Guards Jonah Savainea, Wyatt Millum, Marcus Bow, Jared Wilson, and Tate Ratledge, as well as Emory Jones Jr. Defensive line Darius Alexander, Alfred Collins, TJ Sanders, Josh Farmer, Omar Norman Lott, and CJ West. Defensive ends Landon Jackson, Donovan Ezeraku, JT Tuamalu, Braden Swinson, Nick Scorton, Jordan Bursch, Jack Sawyer, Princely Umanailan, Elijah Roberts, and Kyle Kennard. Linebackers Carson Schweschinger, Sam Mondin Jr., and Danny Stutzman. Corners Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, Chauvin Revel, Azrae Thomas, Darian Porter, Noel Williams, and Bahal Kone. And then safety Nick Amanwari, Kevin Winston Jr., and Billy Bowman. My prediction for day 2, I spent a lot less time on this. So this is my prediction. It's more of a fun one. The first round I always take extremely seriously and try to get it right. My second guy got taken. That's all right, though. Azrae Thomas in round 2, Jordan Burch in round 3 is my official prediction for day 2. All right, huge thank you to Habish, and Rotier. Serious injuries need serious representation, and that's exactly what you get with Habish, and Rotier. They've recovered millions for clients across the state of Wisconsin because to them, getting you to the compensation you deserve is not just a game, it is a commitment. When you call Habish, you're going to talk to a lawyer directly. Their number is 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABISH, or find them online at habish.com. Habish, and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. Visit habish.com for more information or call 1-800-2HABISH. It's going to mostly do it for me today. I'm really looking forward to day 2. A lot of talent still out there. Hopefully Green Bay can navigate the board successfully and find some really talented draft picks. I will see you guys Pack-A-Day radio show Monday, 8 o'clock a.m. till 9 o'clock a.m. noon Central Time, another Q&A on Friday. And then, of course, another live draft show at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time on Friday. Some great guests lined up. Andrew Merteg, Mark Oldacres, Maggie Loney. I believe Justice Mosqueda is going to be stopping by again. I believe Tyler Brooks is going to be stopping by. So should be a very fun Friday night of draft conversation. Shout out to our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Huang, Peter Ritaka, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, Dan Gesford, Dylan Pat Scott, Bobby Santoro, SoCal Pack, Chris Rager, Izzy Roberts, Ian Ewing, Razul Douglas Time, Jake Koner, Carlo Delgado, Willie Winklesinkel, Jen Wright, Ian Hool, and Matt Geiger. I'll see you guys all very soon. I hope you enjoyed round one. Hopefully round two is even better. It's going to be an epic day. I'll see you all soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.